Call on Jesus when you feel lost. He brings clarity and direction. You may think you're lost, but the truth is simpler. Your mind has been louder than your spirit. The noise inside you has been competing with the quiet direction Jesus has been trying to give. Feeling lost does not mean you have failed. It means your internal world has shifted out of rhythm, and now you are standing in the space where confusion and clarity fight for your attention. This is the moment where Jesus steps in, not to judge your hesitation, but to lead you out of the mental fog that has been forming around you. You know the feeling of being mentally pulled in multiple directions at once. You try to make sense of where you are, but your thoughts scatter before you can gather them. You try to find the right step, but every step feels uncertain. You sense something is off inside you, yet you cannot identify what it is. It feels like walking through a familiar room in the dark. You know there is a way forward, but you cannot trust your own perception enough to move. This is not lack of intelligence. It is the mind losing its structure under pressure. Descartes taught that clarity emerges when the mind becomes aware of its own confusion. What you are experiencing right now is that precise moment of awareness. You are noticing the gap between what you know and what you feel. You are noticing that your thoughts have been interpreting life through fear rather than truth. You are noticing that your emotions have been louder than your reasoning. Awareness itself is the first guiding light. It is the opening Jesus uses to bring direction. You have been trying to solve your confusion with the same thoughts that created it. You replay scenarios. You rethink decisions. You analyze every possibility. Yet the more you think, the more lost you feel. This is because confusion cannot be solved by adding more noise. It can only be solved by introducing a voice stronger than the noise. Jesus becomes that voice. He does not force his way through your chaos. He speaks with clarity, and clarity cuts through confusion with precision. There is a moment when the soul reaches a crossroads. One path is the continuation of mental exhaustion. The other is the invitation to call on Jesus, not as a last attempt, but as the only source capable of breaking the cycle your mind is trapped in. Jesus does not guide you by overwhelming you with answers. He guides you by reorienting your perception, shifting your focus, and stabilizing your internal world so you can see what was always in front of you. You are not lost because the path disappeared. You are lost because your inner compass has been disrupted. Pressure can distort direction. Fear can tighten your reasoning. Emotional fatigue can dull your discernment. But none of these forces can overpower the clarity Jesus brings when you call on him with an open heart. He specializes in guiding those who feel directionless. He brings light to the areas of your life where you have been walking in mental shadows. He brings certainty where doubt has taken over. He brings direction where confusion has clouded your understanding. Right now, Jesus is closer to you than the confusion you feel. His voice is quieter than your fear, but stronger than your doubt. He knows how to guide you out of this mental maze. He knows how to stabilize your heart. He knows how to renew your clarity. You are not standing in a dead end. You are standing at the threshold of a new direction, one that begins the moment you call on him. This is where confusion loses its power. This is where direction begins to form. This is where Jesus will lead you step by step into the clarity your mind has been craving. The invisible drift. People rarely wake up one day and suddenly feel lost. The experience of losing direction begins long before the moment you notice it. It starts quietly, subtly, through a slow drift inside the soul. You do not choose confusion. You drift into it. The drift begins the moment your thoughts become heavier than your awareness, when your responsibilities begin stacking faster than your clarity can manage, and when your emotions begin shaping your decisions more than your discernment does. No one recognizes the drift as it happens. It is invisible because it feels like ordinary life. Yet this invisible drift is the birthplace of spiritual and emotional disorientation. The drift starts with small distractions. You ignore them because they feel harmless. A small worry enters your mind, and you tell yourself it will pass. A doubt appears, and you dismiss it without addressing it. A moment of uneasiness arises, and you move forward without questioning the reason. These small shifts accumulate. They begin rearranging your internal world in ways you do not consciously perceive. What once felt aligned slowly loses its structure. What once felt clear becomes slightly blurred. What once felt simple begins to feel heavier. The drift continues quietly, reshaping your inner posture without your consent. Then comes emotional fatigue. It develops slowly. You feel tired, but you push yourself because life keeps moving. You begin functioning on momentum instead of clarity. You stop paying attention to the signals your soul is sending because you do not have time to process them. Fatigue turns into pressure. Pressure turns into tension. Tension begins to influence your decisions. You start reacting instead of discerning. You start surviving instead of navigating. The drift becomes stronger because fatigue weakens your resistance to confusion. Emotional exhaustion blinds you to what is happening inside you. Misinterpreted signals add another layer to the drift. You begin reading situations through the lens of tiredness, not truth. A delay feels like a setback. A challenge feels like a threat. A pause feels like failure. A closed door feels like rejection. When your internal world is tired, even neutral moments begin to feel like confirmation that you are moving in the wrong direction. Your emotions start presenting assumptions as facts. Your mind begins trusting these assumptions because you lack the clarity to see beyond them. This is how the drift deepens. It leads you away from peace and toward confusion. Unresolved thoughts complete the drift. Thoughts you never address begin controlling your internal dialogue. Questions you leave unanswered return with greater intensity. Concerns you avoid begin shaping your perception. Every unresolved thought becomes a weight dragging you further into internal darkness. You know something feels off, but you cannot articulate what it is. You are not lost because of one major event. You are lost because of many small shifts that accumulated beneath your awareness. Descartes believed that the mind loses itself when it stops examining its own movements. The drift is exactly this process. You stop paying attention to the subtle changes in your internal world. You stop questioning why you feel the way you do. You stop recognizing that your perception is being shaped by fatigue rather than truth. Without awareness, the drift takes full control. You do not decide your direction. Your unchecked thoughts do. But here is the truth that brings hope. Feeling lost is not failure. It is a warning that your soul is overdue for divine direction. The drift does not mean God has left you. It means He is calling you. He is drawing your attention back to what you ignored. He is revealing how subtle the inner world can shift when left unexamined. He is showing you that you were never meant to navigate life solely through your own perception. You were designed to be guided by His clarity. When the drift becomes noticeable, it is not a sign of defeat. It is a sign of awakening. It means your spirit is finally recognizing the distance between where you are and where Jesus is trying to lead you. That recognition is the doorway to transformation. It is the moment you stop drifting and start seeking. It is the moment confusion begins losing its power. It is the moment Jesus steps in to interrupt the pattern your mind created without your permission. Awareness of the drift is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of returning to clarity. The confusion loop. Confusion does not arrive as a sudden storm. It forms slowly through a pattern the mind creates when clarity slips out of reach. This pattern becomes a loop, a cycle where your thoughts circle the same worries, the same doubts, and the same imagined outcomes without producing new understanding. It feels like thinking, but it is not genuine thought. It is mental rotation. The mind keeps spinning around the same center without ever expanding beyond it. This is the confusion loop, a state where your reasoning becomes trapped inside itself, unable to access the clarity your spirit is craving. The loop begins with overthinking. You examine a situation from every angle, hoping that more analysis will bring relief. Instead, every new angle reveals more questions. You search for certainty in places that offer none. You replay conversations. You revisit decisions. You rehearse outcomes that may never happen. The more you think, the more tangled your thoughts become. Overthinking promises clarity, but delivers exhaustion. It deepens the sense of being lost because the mind is working without direction. Thought becomes noise. Noise becomes pressure. Pressure becomes fear. And fear becomes the force that tightens the loop even more. As overthinking intensifies, circular reasoning takes over. You start building conclusions based on assumptions your fear created. You treat these assumptions as truth because they feel urgent. You convince yourself you must find answers immediately, even though your mind is too overwhelmed to think clearly. You search for meaning in places where uncertainty is unavoidable. You tell yourself you are missing something important, and this belief keeps you spinning inside the same mental space. Circular reasoning is the mind arguing with itself, trying to reach a destination it cannot see. False urgency then enters the loop. You feel pressure to act quickly, even when no quick action is needed. You feel compelled to resolve everything right now. You feel as if delaying a decision will cause your life to fall apart. This urgency does not come from truth. It comes from fear disguised as responsibility. It pushes you to move before you have clear direction. It convinces you that stillness is dangerous. It tricks you into believing that waiting is failure. False urgency forces your mind into rapid motion, which only increases confusion. The faster you think, the less clarity you have. Internal noise completes the loop. Noise is not sound. Noise is clutter. It is the mixture of worries, memories, assumptions, imagined scenarios, and emotional reactions, all speaking at the same time. Noise disrupts your ability to distinguish what is real from what is exaggerated. It distorts your perception. It amplifies your fears. It quiets your discernment. Noise is not the mind thinking. It is the mind losing its hierarchy of thought. Every idea has the same volume. Every concern feels equally urgent. Every possibility feels equally threatening. This is the environment where the confusion loop thrives. Descartes taught that the mind becomes unreliable when it stops distinguishing between clear ideas and obscure ones. In the confusion loop, everything becomes obscure. The mind can no longer separate truth from distortion, possibility from probability, fear from intuition. You begin assuming the worst without realizing you are doing it. You begin believing your thoughts without questioning their origin. You begin treating emotional reactions as logical conclusions. The confusion loop turns your inner world into a maze where every path leads back to the same uncertainty. This loop creates the illusion that you are thinking deeply, when in reality you are only thinking repeatedly. Repetition replaces insight. Motion replaces clarity. The mind feels busy, but it is not progressing. It is running in place, consuming energy without producing direction. The more the loop tightens, the more you feel stuck. The more stuck you feel, the more desperately you try to think your way out. But the confusion loop cannot be escaped through thought alone, because thought is the very thing tangled within it. This is why calling on Jesus becomes essential. His voice enters the loop from outside the cycle. His truth is not shaped by your worries. His clarity is not limited by your confusion. His perspective is not trapped inside your emotional fog. Jesus interrupts the confusion loop by introducing a thought that does not originate from fear. His guidance breaks patterns that your mind has been feeding. His presence quiets the noise that has been distorting your perception. He does not strengthen the loop. He dismantles it. You are not trapped because you are weak. You are trapped because your mind has been trying to find clarity without accessing the one who gives it. Jesus brings direction in a way your thoughts cannot. He breaks the cycle your mind cannot break. He leads you out of the mental maze you built without realizing it. The confusion loop is strong, but his clarity is stronger. When his voice interrupts the loop, the cycle begins to unravel. And once it unravels, direction becomes possible again. Jesus as the interrupting voice. When the mind enters confusion, it begins operating like a closed circuit. Thoughts feed on other thoughts. Fear strengthens uncertainty. Doubt expands into every corner of your reasoning. Inside that cycle, nothing new enters. The mind becomes a self-sustained storm. You feel lost not because the path is gone, but because your perception has no breathing room left. And it is precisely in this suffocating internal environment that Jesus reveals himself not just as a guide, but as the voice that interrupts what you cannot stop on your own. Jesus does not wait until you have perfect clarity to speak. He enters the noise. He steps directly into the middle of your scattered thoughts. He approaches your confusion with a calmness that feels almost foreign to the energy swirling in your mind. His voice does not escalate to match your internal volume. It confronts your turmoil with authority. It carries a clarity that exposes the instability of your fear. His presence interrupts the pattern that has been cycling inside you, and this interruption is the first sign that you are not as lost as you think. Fear creates momentum. Pressure creates momentum. Overthinking creates momentum. Jesus stops the momentum. His voice breaks the chain reaction inside your reasoning. He does not add another layer of thought. He introduces truth. Truth does not argue with fear. It replaces it. Truth does not negotiate with anxiety. It overrides it. Truth does not strengthen confusion. It dissolves it. When Jesus speaks, his words cut through the mental fog with precision. They separate what is imagined from what is real. They separate what is assumed from what is true. They separate what is emotional from what is eternal. The interruption Jesus brings is not gentle. It is precise. It is decisive. It is surgical. He touches the exact point in your thought pattern where the distortion began. He does not need a long explanation of how you reached your confusion. He knows. He sees the root beneath the symptoms. He sees the fear beneath the overthinking. He sees the exhaustion behind the frustration. His voice aims directly at the part of your mind that has been burdened the longest. The moment he speaks, you feel the weight inside you shift. Descartes believed that truth must be distinct enough to stand apart from any distorted thought. Jesus embodies this principle perfectly. His voice has distinction. It stands apart from every other voice inside you. Your fears echo. His truth stands. Your doubts repeat. His direction remains. Your assumptions fluctuate. His clarity does not move. There is a steadiness in his tone that reveals the instability of your own reasoning. His words carry a purity your confused mind cannot imitate. That is why you recognize him even before you understand him. Jesus interrupts not only your thoughts but also your emotional patterns. When fear has been circling inside your heart, his presence breaks through the emotional tension. When anxiety has become the default reaction, his peace enters with a calm certainty that redefines your inner atmosphere. When insecurity has been whispering lies, his affirmation becomes louder than your doubts. He disrupts the emotional energy that has been pulling you away from clarity. He replaces internal noise with inner stillness. That stillness becomes the environment where direction becomes possible. The interruption is also deeply personal. Jesus speaks in a way that meets the specific contours of your confusion. He knows the phrases that will stop your spiral. He knows the tone that will quiet your fear. He knows the truth your heart can receive right now without collapsing under pressure. He does not overwhelm you with revelation. He gives you the one truth you need to break the cycle that has been controlling your thoughts. His voice becomes the turning point. You may feel lost, but Jesus is not confused about your path. He sees where you are. He sees where you drifted. He sees what misled you. He sees what tired you. He sees what distorted your vision. Nothing about your confusion surprises him. Nothing about your silence distances him. Nothing about your uncertainty changes his direction for your life. His role is not to wait for you to find your way. His role is to interrupt the path that fear created and restore the path he prepared for you. When he speaks, the cycle inside your mind begins to weaken. The loop begins to slow. The noise begins to quiet. A new awareness begins to rise from within you. You start recognizing that his voice carries the clarity your thoughts could not produce. You begin sensing that his truth can guide you better than your reasoning ever could. You begin realizing that his interruption is not disruption but rescue. His voice is not another sound inside your confusion. It is the sound that brings your confusion to an end. The alignment principle. Clarity cannot enter a heart that is in conflict with itself. Direction cannot settle in a mind that is still arguing with its own fears. Jesus can speak, but if your inner world is misaligned, his guidance cannot land where it needs to. This is the alignment principle. It reveals a truth many overlook. Jesus does not guide confusion. He guides alignment. He does not illuminate the path while your heart is still divided. He brings you into alignment first, and only then does he reveal the steps you are meant to take. Misalignment happens when your fears interpret life differently than your faith does. One part of you believes God has a plan. Another part of you fears you must create one yourself. One part of you trusts Jesus to lead. Another part of you assumes you must avoid mistakes at all costs. This internal split weakens your discernment. It makes you doubt your decisions. It makes you question every next step. It makes you feel lost even when Jesus is already directing you. Your spirit and your fears are pulling in opposite directions, and the mind becomes the battlefield caught between them. Alignment requires honesty about what you are actually listening to. You may tell yourself you trust Jesus, yet your reactions reveal you trust fear. You may claim you are waiting on God, yet your anxiety reveals you are waiting on certainty. You may believe you are seeking His will, yet your thoughts reveal you are desperately seeking control. This is not condemnation. It is awareness. The mind must recognize what voice it has been obeying before it can align with the one who brings clarity. Descartes taught that true reasoning requires removing every assumption that disguises itself as truth. Misalignment thrives on false assumptions. The assumption that you must have everything figured out. The assumption that your worth depends on perfect decisions. The assumption that God's silence means absence. The assumption that confusion means failure. Once these assumptions are exposed, they lose their power. Alignment begins when you recognize that many of your fears have been masquerading as logic. Alignment is not agreement with your feelings. It is agreement with truth. It is the moment your inner world stops resisting Jesus' direction. It is the moment you stop arguing with the guidance He is trying to give you. It is the moment you choose trust over control, clarity over panic, and obedience over hesitation. Alignment feels like a deep exhale. The tension in your chest loosens. The pressure on your thoughts releases. You begin to feel centered again. What felt complex becomes simple. What felt overwhelming becomes manageable. What felt confusing becomes clear enough to take the next step. Misalignment creates static. Alignment creates clarity. When your heart is aligned, you stop interpreting life through fear. You interpret it through truth. When your mind is aligned, direction no longer feels threatening. It feels stabilizing. When your spirit is aligned, you stop chasing answers. You start receiving them. Alignment is not perfection. It is coherence. It is the internal agreement that your fears do not get to lead, and your assumptions do not get to decide your path. Jesus works through alignment because alignment creates receptivity. When your spirit is settled, His voice becomes recognizable. When your thoughts are quiet enough to listen, His direction becomes distinct. When your emotions no longer dominate your reasoning, His clarity becomes undeniable. Jesus does not speak louder to compete with your chaos. He brings your soul into alignment so His whisper can be heard as clearly as a shout. The alignment principle also exposes why many people pray for direction but still feel lost. They want Jesus to guide them while they remain internally divided. They want clarity without surrender. They want direction without trust. They want answers without alignment. But Jesus does not guide a heart that is still negotiating with fear. He guides the heart that has decided to follow even before it sees the full path. Alignment is the doorway to divine clarity. Once your internal world stops fighting itself, Jesus can lead you with precision. You begin sensing the difference between fear-driven thoughts and truth-guided ones. You begin recognizing the steps that carry peace versus the ones that carry pressure. You begin understanding that clarity is not something you wait for. It is something that meets you when your heart becomes aligned with the one who gives it. This alignment prepares you for the next movement of transformation, where surrender becomes the bridge between confusion and direction. Sacred transition into surrender. There comes a moment in every journey where the mind must stop leading so the spirit can begin listening. This moment is called surrender, but not the kind of surrender people misunderstand. It is not defeat, resignation, or passivity. It is the sacred transition where you stop relying on your own exhausted reasoning and allow Jesus to take the position your fear has been occupying. Surrender is the doorway through which clarity enters. It is the state that prepares your inner world for guidance. Without surrender, direction becomes distorted. With surrender, direction becomes unmistakable. Surrender begins when you recognize that carrying everything alone has not produced the clarity you hoped for. You have tried to think your way out of confusion. You have tried to predict outcomes to avoid disappointment. You have tried to solve problems before they even materialized. You have tried to protect yourself from what might go wrong. Yet every attempt has led to more pressure, not less. This is the evidence that your mind is overextended. It has reached beyond its intended capacity. Jesus does not ask you to surrender because he wants control. He asks because he knows your mind is not built to carry the weight you have placed on it. Surrender is not an emotional collapse. It is a conscious shift. It is the moment you decide that your thoughts no longer get to decide your direction. It is the moment you acknowledge that your fear-based logic is not trustworthy. It is the moment you accept that your understanding is limited and his is not. This shift opens space inside you. Space for clarity, space for peace, space for divine direction. Without this internal opening, Jesus can speak, but the message cannot land. Your inner world is too filled with tension, assumptions, and self-protection for truth to take root. Descartes believed that for truth to be recognized, the mind must suspend its initial judgments. Surrender reflects this principle. It suspends your assumptions about how things must unfold. It suspends your instinct to control outcomes. It suspends your belief that you must navigate everything alone. Surrender creates neutrality inside your spirit, a calmness where clarity can be distinguished from noise. When you stop demanding answers on your terms, you become able to receive direction on God's terms. Surrender does not remove responsibility from your life. It removes pressure from your heart. It allows you to move with intention instead of fear. It allows you to trust the process instead of manipulating it. It allows you to walk without demanding constant reassurance. It frees your mind from the exhausting burden of trying to anticipate every possibility. This freedom becomes the internal space where Jesus begins to guide you step by step. Surrender shifts your posture from frantic searching to receptive listening. You cannot receive Jesus' direction while clinging to the illusion that you must find the way yourself. When your hands are full of fear, they cannot receive guidance. When your heart is clenched around anxiety, it cannot feel nudges from the Spirit. When your mind is crowded with scenarios, it cannot recognize truth when it arrives. Surrender releases the tightness. It softens the internal grip. It lets you breathe again. It allows your soul to return to a pace that can hear what Jesus has been saying all along. Surrender also breaks the emotional momentum that has been keeping you trapped. Fear gains power when it goes unchallenged. Anxiety strengthens when it becomes familiar. Overthinking deepens when it becomes habitual. Surrender interrupts these patterns. It tells your emotions they do not get to govern your decisions. It tells your thoughts they do not get to interpret every moment. It tells your fears they do not get to lead your future. In surrender, authority shifts back to Jesus, and with that shift comes the peace you have been longing for. Surrender feels vulnerable at first, because you are letting go of what once gave you a sense of control. But that vulnerability is the very soil where clarity grows. Control does not create clarity. It creates tension. Surrender does not create weakness. It creates space for truth. When you surrender, you are not losing power. You are reclaiming alignment. You are choosing the wisdom of Jesus over the instability of your own perception. You are making room for a voice that sees beyond what you fear. As you enter this transition, notice what is happening inside you. The inner fight begins to weaken. The mental noise becomes quieter. The anxiety loses urgency. Something begins to rearrange in your spirit. That rearrangement is Jesus preparing you for the prayer that will bring clarity, direction, and illumination. Main prayer: clarity, direction, illumination. Jesus, we come to you with a mind that has been tangled in its own thoughts, a heart that has been carrying weight it was never meant to hold, and a spirit that has been searching for light in places that offered none. We bring before you the confusion that has clouded our steps and the uncertainty that has made us question our path. We ask that you enter this moment with the clarity only you can give, the direction only you can reveal, and the illumination only you can produce. We acknowledge that our understanding is limited, but your wisdom is not. We recognize that our perception is clouded, but your truth is clear. Bring clarity over the mind. Touch every thought that has been repeating without resolution. Break the cycles of overthinking that have drained our strength. Remove the assumptions that have disguised themselves as truth. Expose the fears that have been shaping our reasoning. Replace the noise with a stillness that allows us to recognize your voice. Let your clarity separate what is real from what is imagined. Let it dismantle the distortions that have convinced us we are lost. Let it bring light to the corners of our thinking where confusion has taken root. Make the mind clear enough to receive the direction you are about to give. Bring direction over the path. You see every step we must take, even the ones we cannot yet perceive. You know the opportunities that are safe and the doors that lead to distraction. You know the connections that will strengthen our journey and the ones that will drain our spirit. You know the timing that aligns with your purpose and the timing that would lead to unnecessary pressure. Guide each step with precision. Redirect us when our feet move toward places that are not meant for us. Close the paths that would mislead us. Highlight the paths that carry your peace. Let direction become unmistakable, not because the road is simple, but because your presence is leading. Bring illumination within the heart. Strengthen the inner world so it can interpret life through truth instead of fear. Awaken the spiritual sensitivity that recognizes your nudges. Illuminate the intuition that you have placed within us, the one that speaks quietly but guides powerfully. Brighten the places inside us where confidence has been dimmed by doubt. Shine light on the emotions that need healing. Reveal the lies we have unconsciously believed and replace them with your truth. Let the heart become steady again, not by force, but by illumination. Let certainty rise from within, fueled by the assurance that you are near. Jesus, remove the mental fog that has made decisions feel overwhelming. Lift the weight that has been pressing on our understanding. Break the patterns of fear that have shaped our reactions. Restore the trust that was weakened by disappointment. Let your presence fill the internal spaces where anxiety once controlled us. Let your truth dismantle the arguments our fears built. Let your peace quiet the tension that has been living inside us. You are the only one who can bring clarity to the mind, direction to the path, and illumination to the heart all at once. We release the need to control outcomes. We release the pressure to predict the future. We release the urge to understand everything before moving forward. We choose to follow your voice even when the path is not fully visible. We choose to trust your leading even when our emotions are unstable. We choose to listen for your direction instead of negotiating with our fear. We choose to let your clarity guide the decisions we make today. Strengthen us with the confidence that comes from knowing we are not navigating this journey alone. Hold our hearts steady when uncertainty rises. Hold our thoughts in alignment when distractions attempt to scatter them. Hold our spirit anchored when pressure tries to push us off course. Let the peace you bring become the foundation we stand on. Let the clarity you give become the lens through which we see. Let the direction you reveal become the path we follow with courage. Jesus, we trust that you are lighting the next step even when we cannot see the entire road. We trust that you are aligning our heart with your will even when our emotions are still adjusting. We trust that you are guiding us into a place of greater stability, deeper peace, and stronger faith. We call on you not because we are weak, but because we finally recognize that your clarity is the only answer to our confusion. The illumined step. Clarity does not arrive all at once. It rarely comes as a full map or a complete vision. Divine clarity reveals itself the way dawn touches a landscape, slowly and intentionally, one layer of light at a time. Jesus guides you in steps, not leaps, because steps require presence. Steps require awareness. Steps require trust. A leap depends on your ability to see far ahead, but a step depends on your willingness to follow the one who sees for you. This is the illumined step, the principle that God reveals direction in proportion to your willingness to move. The mind wants the entire picture before it takes action. It craves certainty. It demands guarantees. It asks for full understanding before committing to anything. But Jesus does not guide through guarantees. He guides through growing illumination. He reveals what you need for this moment, not what you think you need for every moment. When the heart feels lost, this can feel frustrating. You want to see the entire path. You want to know how everything ends. You want to understand why the confusion happened in the first place. But Jesus knows that too much information overwhelms the mind before it strengthens the spirit. He gives you clarity and steps you can actually carry. The illumined step begins with the smallest shift in awareness. You feel a release where there was once tension. You feel a pull in a direction you had not noticed before. You feel a moment of peace where fear once dictated your decisions. This is not coincidence. It is divine alignment. Jesus does not wait for you to decode the feeling before he moves. He uses that feeling to draw you toward the next step, the step that will hold more clarity than the one you are standing on. Descartes taught that the mind recognizes truth not by volume, but by distinctness. The illumined step carries that distinctness. When Jesus reveals a step, it carries a clarity your thoughts could not fabricate. It carries a peace your fear cannot imitate. It carries a certainty your anxiety cannot produce. The step may be small, but it shines brighter than anything else inside you. The more you observe it, the more undeniable it becomes. This is how divine direction works. Not by overwhelming the mind, but by illuminating the next movement with unmistakable precision. Clarity often comes in fragments because fragments build dependence. If you received the entire path at once, you would walk independently, interpreting every detail according to your own logic. Fragments require relationship. They require trust. They require listening. They require humility. Each illuminated step leads you into deeper alignment with Jesus, not just deeper understanding of your situation. The purpose of divine clarity is not only to inform you, it is to anchor you in the one who guides. The illumined step also protects you. When clarity comes in small portions, it prevents you from running ahead into places you are not spiritually prepared for. It keeps your pace aligned with your capacity. It ensures you do not interpret direction prematurely. It guards you from emotional impulsiveness and protects you from decisions driven by fear. Jesus gives light at the speed of your readiness. He reveals direction at the pace that keeps you steady. What feels slow is actually strategic. What feels gradual is actually protective. You may not see the full picture, but the step you have is enough for now. The peace in that step is evidence of alignment. The steadiness it brings is evidence of divine presence. The internal confirmation you sense is evidence that Jesus is guiding you, even when your circumstances look unchanged. You do not need to know the entire journey to leave the place of confusion. You only need to trust the step that is illuminated. And when you take that step, something powerful happens. The next one appears. Light follows obedience. Clarity follows movement. Direction follows trust. Jesus reveals the path gradually, but he walks the entire path with you. The moment you move with him, you break the power of stagnation. You break the influence of fear. You break the illusion that you are lost. Movement under divine guidance is not motion, it is transformation. This is why the first illuminated step matters more than the final destination. It is the step that breaks the cycle of confusion. It is the step that reclaims your alignment. It is the step that proves Jesus is leading. It is the step that strengthens your confidence in his voice. When you take that step, you are no longer wandering. You are following. And this prepares you for what comes next. The blessing that sharpens your vision, strengthens your discernment, and reveals the path fear tried to hide. Blessing of clear vision. May clarity settle over your life in a way that dissolves every lingering shadow of confusion. May the vision Jesus places inside you become sharper than the doubts that once clouded your reasoning. This blessing is not a poetic expression. It is a declaration of alignment, a restoration of sight, a recalibration of perception. Clear vision is not merely seeing the path. It is seeing the truth that shapes the path. When Jesus blesses your sight, he restores not only your ability to see forward, but your ability to see correctly. May Jesus sharpen your vision until you can distinguish between instinct and fear, between temporary emotion and genuine discernment. Let the fog that once distorted your understanding lift completely. Let your thoughts become steady enough to interpret direction without hesitation. Let your heart become quiet enough to recognize the difference between internal noise and divine guidance. May every filter that once clouded your interpretation fall away. You were not designed to navigate life through the lens of confusion. You were designed to navigate it through the wisdom Jesus provides. May your spiritual perception grow stronger than your emotional reactions. Emotions rise and fall, but clarity stands. Emotions create urgency, but clarity creates direction. Emotions blur the details, but clarity exposes truth. May Jesus strengthen your inner vision until you no longer read situations through the distortions of exhaustion or fear. May He give you the ability to see circumstances as they are, rather than as your anxieties imagine them to be. May your spirit remain anchored in truth, even when your emotions shift. May your discernment sharpen as Jesus aligns your heart with His direction. Let Him reveal what is merely distracting from what is truly meaningful. Let Him uncover which opportunities are genuine invitations and which are detours disguised as progress. Let Him expose the subtle influences that once pulled your spirit off course. Let Him highlight the people, environments, and decisions that carry His peace. Discernment is not about being clever, it is about being aligned. May Jesus bring your heart into alignment so your intuition becomes trustworthy again. May you see the next step with confidence. Not the entire journey, not the full picture, just the next step. May Jesus illuminate that step so clearly that you cannot confuse it with anything else. Let it carry a sense of certainty that settles your spirit. Let it carry a peace that overrides your fear. Let it carry a simplicity that cuts through complexity. When the next step is clear, the path becomes manageable. When the next step is visible, the mind stops grasping for answers it does not need. May Jesus make it impossible for you to miss the step He is revealing. May your vision remain steady even when circumstances shift around you. Clarity does not depend on the stability of your environment. It depends on the stability of your source. Jesus does not offer temporary sight. He offers anchored sight. He gives you vision that stays firm regardless of what attempts to distract or unsettle you. May His clarity guard your mind from returning to the patterns that once trapped you. May His direction protect your heart from drifting back into the confusion He delivered you from. May His truth remain louder than any voice that attempts to distort your perception. May you walk with a vision that sees beyond immediate pressure. May you see possibility where discouragement once lived. May you see direction where uncertainty once dominated. May you see purpose where confusion once drained your confidence. Jesus restores your vision not only to help you navigate life, but to remind you that you were never alone in the confusion. His clarity has been reaching for you long before you were aware of it. May that clarity now anchor your entire day. And as vision sharpens, confidence returns. When you can see the path, even in small pieces, your spirit stops feeling lost. Your mind stops spiraling. Your emotions stop panicking. Clear vision creates internal stability. It allows you to move without overthinking. It allows you to decide without fear. It allows you to trust without demanding full explanation. May the blessing of clear vision settle into every part of your inner world until confusion no longer has space to grow. This blessing prepares your spirit for the final movement, where everything you have gained in clarity, direction, and alignment becomes rooted in a steady, lasting foundation. The blessing of steady direction. There is a blessing that settles over a person when Jesus becomes the one guiding their steps. It is not dramatic. It is not loud. It is a steadying force that anchors the heart and calms the mind. This blessing of steady direction does not remove challenges from your path, but it removes the confusion that once made every challenge feel overwhelming. It creates a quiet confidence, a sense of alignment that allows you to move forward without the constant fear of taking the wrong step. When Jesus directs, stability follows. When His presence leads, hesitation loses its power. Steady direction begins internally, long before it manifests externally. Something shifts in the way you perceive decisions. What once felt foggy now carries a distinct sense of clarity. What once seemed risky now feels measured. What once triggered worry now becomes manageable. This transformation does not depend on circumstances. It depends on the internal structure Jesus is building within you. He does not guide you from the outside in. He guides you from the inside out. As your inner world stabilizes, your path begins to reflect that stability. Steady direction also rewires your relationship with uncertainty. You no longer demand to see every outcome before taking action. You no longer wait for absolute certainty before moving. You no longer interpret unclear moments as signs of being lost. Instead, you begin to interpret uncertainty with calmness because you know the one who leads you sees farther than you ever could. The blessing of steady direction teaches you to trust the step that is illuminated rather than fearing the steps that are still in the dark. Descartes believed that truth produces certainty not by force but by clarity. In the same way, Jesus produces steady direction not by eliminating every unknown, but by making the next step unmistakably clear. You begin to recognize direction not by emotional intensity, but by inner coherence. If a path is aligned with His voice, it carries peace even if it carries challenge. If a path is misaligned, it carries pressure even if it looks appealing. This discernment grows stronger as you learn to interpret your path through truth instead of fear. Steady direction also protects you from internal fragmentation. In confusion, your thoughts scatter. In fear, your emotions pull you in conflicting directions. But when Jesus leads, the mind and heart move in unity. Your reasoning becomes sharper. Your emotions become more balanced. Your intuition becomes more reliable. This unity gives you the strength to remain focused even when distractions attempt to pull you off course. You are no longer reacting to everything around you. You are responding with intention because your steps are guided. There is also a protective layer within steady direction. Jesus not only guides you toward what is right, He guides you away from what would harm you. You begin sensing early warnings that you once ignored. You feel uneasiness where danger hides. You feel heaviness where you are not meant to go. You feel resistance where a closed door is a form of divine mercy. This is not paranoia. It is discernment shaped by clarity. As you respond to these signals, your steps grow stronger, safer, and more aligned with purpose. The blessing of steady direction prepares you for long-term stability. It strengthens your relationship with movement. You no longer walk anxiously. You walk deliberately. You no longer fear the weight of decisions. You trust the one who guides them. You no longer panic when clarity seems delayed. You wait without collapsing. This blessing is not about having an easy path. It is about having a guided one. And a guided path is always a steady one. What Jesus is building in you is not temporary insight. It is sustainable direction. This blessing is shaping the way you think, the way you choose, the way you interpret everything that unfolds in your life. It is preparing you for a deeper rhythm of clarity, one that will be fully grounded in the final steps of this journey. The final rhythm of clarity. There comes a moment when everything you have received, learned, and understood must settle into a place deep within you, not as a passing insight, not as a temporary emotional lift, but as an anchor. This final rhythm of clarity exists so that what Jesus awakened in you does not fade when the noise of life returns. It is the point where direction becomes identity, where peace becomes posture, and where trust becomes the new language of your inner world. This moment is not about intensity. It is about permanence. You have walked through confusion, confronted inner distortion, surrendered control, and allowed Jesus to illuminate the steps ahead. Now the clarity you carry must shape the way you move into the rest of your life. This is the rhythm that endures. It is the rhythm that keeps the heart steady when circumstances shift. It is the rhythm that keeps the mind aligned when thoughts attempt to pull you backward. It is the rhythm that keeps your spirit responsive to the voice that has been leading you out of confusion and into direction. This rhythm grows stronger as you recognize what clarity truly means. It is not perfection in your decisions. It is not certainty in your outcomes. It is not the absence of challenges. Clarity is the internal recognition of truth. It is the awareness that Jesus is guiding you, even when the path is still taking shape. It is the confidence that the next step will always reveal itself when needed. Clarity is not a destination. It is a continuous unfolding, a steady illumination that meets you as you move. You have learned that confusion loses its power when truth enters. You have learned that overthinking quiets when Jesus interrupts its cycle. You have learned that direction becomes clear when your heart aligns with His voice. These are not small lessons. These are foundations. They shape the way you interpret every moment ahead. They prepare you to navigate uncertainty without collapsing into fear. They allow you to move through decisions with a grounded spirit instead of a restless mind. They give you the ability to walk with confidence, even when clarity comes one step at a time. The final rhythm of clarity also transforms your relationship with yourself. You stop fighting your thoughts because your mind is no longer your enemy. You stop distrusting your emotions because they are no longer controlling you. You stop doubting your future because you understand that Jesus is not guiding you randomly. Every shift, every pause, every direction, every redirection carries purpose. This understanding stabilizes your inner world. It allows you to stand in moments that once would have overwhelmed you. It allows you to breathe through situations that once would have shaken you. It allows you to remain calm in places where you once felt lost. As this rhythm settles within you, it begins shaping your expectations. You no longer anticipate confusion. You anticipate guidance. You no longer expect chaos. You expect order. You no longer brace yourself for uncertainty. You prepare yourself for clarity. Your spirit becomes trained to look for the voice that leads, rather than the noise that distracts. This shift changes everything, not by forcing you to be stronger, but by anchoring you in the one who already is. You will still face moments that challenge your sense of direction. You will still encounter situations that test your peace. But now you carry an internal structure that cannot be easily disrupted. You have learned to recognize the signs of alignment. You have learned to distinguish fear's voice from truth's voice. You have learned to trust the movement of clarity even when it arrives in fragments. These skills are no longer temporary insights. They are part of you now. They will shape the way you navigate every decision, every path, and every season ahead. Finally, walk forward with the assurance that you are not stepping into the unknown blindly. You are stepping with the one who has walked the path before you. You are stepping with clarity that did not come from your own understanding. You are stepping with direction shaped by a voice that does not change. You are stepping with a rhythm that will remain steady within you long after this moment ends.